about 30 feet down in a well. It's a shot in the dark right now.
In ranching, something's new every day, but nothing's ever this new.
No animal rescue is going to be the same, and it's very hard to train people for this.
Scarlett went in and out of that fire building 5 times to pull the babies out one at a time.
Oh, she's slipping. Now take Valley. Get her.
Please. Oh,
The response to our first show was overwhelming. Tonight we have a brand new collection of heart-pounding footage of life and death rescues. Now it can be tough watching helpless animals struggle to stay alive. But as always, we promise you an hour filled with happy endings. We begin with the story of a sea-loving dog that was unfortunate enough to hitch a ride on a doomed fishing boat. Off the shore of Monterey, California, Billy Martin and his nephew Ryan were fishing when their boat capsized, leaving their beloved family pet, a St. Bernard named Buck, trapped inside the boat.
The boat lost power and drifted into the surf, and the 2 people on board made it out, but when the boat flipped, there was some confusion as to where the dog that was on board ended up. We were going to abandon the boat. The boat was on shore for about 20 minutes. There was no sign of the dog.
If Buck were still alive, the lifeguards had to act quickly to get him out.
Without the owner's permission, we decided to break the window to check for the dog.
The maroon boat continued taking on water. The tide kept rushing in. The men moved as fast as they could to prevent the overturned vessel from being sucked by the undertow back into the ocean.
The dog's still alive. He's trapped inside. He's cold and shivering, in shock, just standing there, won't move.
The tight space of the hull made it nearly impossible to reach the dog. They struggled to lift the heavy boat, but could not. With the aid of a truck, they tried pulling the boat higher onto the beach, to no avail.
We're afraid to get him out of the trap door in the front of the deck because if the boat lunges or something, we don't want to hurt the dog in any way. So we're waiting for the fire crew to show up with their chainsaw that has special blades to cut through fiberglass.
Firefighter Mike Brandkamp used a buzzsaw to cut a hole into the hull of the overturned boat. If Buck made a sudden move, the powerful saw could severely injure the animal. Brandkamp had to be careful. Finally, with the hole in the boat large enough for lifeguard Eric Sturm to reach inside, a dazed and confused St. Bernard named Buck finally made it to shore.
Taking a lot of surf, a lot of pounding. At this point, appears to be okay. There's no cuts, no bleeding, and he's pretty active pulling me over, so good sign.
Some very happy lifeguards and one very happy dog. Another family pet nearly lost its life in a decidedly different predicament on a cold New Year's Day in a small town of Thorold, Canada.
Well, what we've got is a dog, a puppy, that seems to be stuck about 30 feet down in a well. It's an old well that seems to be on the side of the house here.
Kathy Bowman, the owner of 2 twin 7-week-old Dalmatians, let both of them out to play in the backyard when suddenly one disappeared.
I just put him out for a second so he could pee, and he just went straight for the hole and fell down.
So what we're trying to do is put a noose down there, and hopefully if we could snare the dog by one of the back legs or so and pull him up that way. But we've been working on it for a while already.
The mood at the rescue site was tense.
The problem we have right now is trying to get a hold of the dog. The dog, it seems too foggy down there, and we can't see him properly. It's a shot in the dark right now, and what we're really hoping that we're going to get that spot to get a hold of him.
For 5 hours, the rescuers tried various ropes, pipes, and hooks to reach the dog and bring it to the surface. Yet every time they got close, the tiny, frightened puppy kept slipping further from their reach. One last time, firefighters dropped the noose into the hole. The rope slipped around Duke's tail, and to the delight of absolutely everyone present, the stunned puppy was brought up and out of the hole to safety. With the temperature of his tiny body dangerously low, Duke was immediately treated for hypothermia. But his vital signs were stable, and his owners were ready to celebrate a glorious new year.
Yeah, I'm really happy. Are you? There you go, Duke. One tough trooper, that little dog. See ever.
A week later, a grateful Bowman family took Duke for a visit to meet his rescuers at the Thorold Road Fire Department.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have Kathy Bowman and Duke.
What you all did here was far past the Call of Duty. You showed us a lot of feeling and compassion for a little puppy. You extended yourselves beyond belief. That was the one thing that stood out the most, that we couldn't believe your efforts that went in that night. It just was overwhelming. And thank you isn't enough, and that we do is thank you with all our hearts.
There is no stronger bond in the animal world than the one between mother and child. When a deadly fire threatens that bond, it's amazing what can happen. At approximately 6 a.m. one spring morning, Brooklyn Ladder Company number 175 received a call that an abandoned garage in a rundown neighborhood was fully engulfed in flames.
As I got out of the truck to put my coat on, I heard cats crying. You know, little cats crying. I had no idea where they were coming from.
The firefighters were unaware that an incredible life-or-death drama was unfolding as they fought the raging blaze. A stray calico cat suffering from severe burns all over her body was struggling to save her family from the hungry flames.
In the smoke, I can see 3 little kittens curled up together about 3 or 4 feet from the fire building. Directly across the street from them was 2 kittens. And I says, wow, I wonder where the mother cat is.
It dawned on him that they could not possibly have gotten out of the burning building all by themselves. He began to search for their mother.
I found her huddled into a corner. I really got choked up when I saw her because her face was burnt, her eyes were lifted shut, the tips of her ears were like hanging off.
The mother cat could have easily fled the inferno and saved herself. Yet 5 times she braved the fire to carry her offspring one by one to safety. When Gianelli placed her in the box with her kittens, an amazing thing happened.
She actually kissed and touched every one of the kittens, you know, not being able to see because her whole face was swollen. She actually touched every one by one, and sort of like counted them. And then she just laid down and let the babies nurse on her.
All 6 burned cats were rushed to the North Shore Animal League. With her skin now a burnt red, the mother was nicknamed Scarlet. It was touch and go for Scarlet and her brood for several days. Miraculously, Scarlet, along with 4 of her 5 injured kittens, survived the horrible blaze. Headlines spread the story around the world, and each animal was soon adopted into a loving home, thanks to the incredible heroics of one mother determined against all odds to save her children. Early Saturday morning in Chicago, Illinois, pet groomer Claire Cordwell had just dropped off several dogs at the shop before leaving to pick up another dog. Minutes after she left, a grease fire started at the restaurant next door, setting the nearby buildings on fire. Alert firefighters were able to save the dogs, and friends and family members quickly scrambled to get the animals to safety, yet one cat was found motionless and barely alive.
We found one of the cats. It's barely alive.
At that precious instant, Claire returned to the scene of the unfolding tragedy. Recognizing Junior, Claire immediately set out to save the cat.
He lived, he was going. Thank God I watched the home show one morning and they were doing CPR on animals. Yeah. I never thought I was doing it for my own cat.
For more than 15 minutes, Claire desperately tried to revive the motionless cat, breathing into his mouth and pressing on his lungs. Finally, Junior showed signs of life. Claire quickly rushed the ailing feline to a waiting ambulance where he was immediately given oxygen.
My cat was dying. They gave him oxygen, and thanks to the Chicago Fire Department, he's with us. Yeah, I've never done CPR on a cat before. It's a first.
There you go. There's a humanitarian.
Well, this guy has had a heck of a life. So I think that he's real grateful. Like I said, this is the first time he's ever let me hold him. So I think he's going to continue to let me hold him from now on.
How this animal got up there, no one knows for sure. But 6-year-old Koki somehow found himself trapped on top of an abandoned grain elevator in downtown Buffalo, New York. The dog had been stuck on the top of a 200-foot tall structure for 2 days when rescue crews finally arrived. With the bottom 2 floors of the building flooded, no one could quite figure out how to get up to him.
What looked like a floor area was actually stagnant water, and due to the darkness, it looked like it was solid floor. So at that point, that's how I assumed the animal got in.
A helicopter was brought in from the Erie County Sheriff's Department, but when the chopper landed on the roof, Koki was so frightened by the noise, he kept running away from his rescuers, dodging all around the top of the fragile silo.
No animal rescue is going to be the same. It's very hard to train people for this. You're going to get there and more or less have to put your personal feelings aside.
Fearing that the frantic dog might accidentally slip and plummet to his death, rescue workers urgently punched a hole into a wall at water level. They placed a makeshift bridge over the dank water and carefully climbed 20 flights of dark, decaying stairs to grab the panicked dog and bring him to safety. The German Shepherd was at last happy to have all 4 feet firmly on the ground. You just never know where an animal can get trapped. For one Florida resident, the tiny cry for help came from the most unexpected place. On the William Lehman Causeway, an elevated stretch of highway in Miami, a jogger heard the meowing of a tiny trapped animal in trouble. Somewhere in the length of a 40-foot pipe that stretched from the highway to the road below, a lonely kitten was crying for help.
Have a cat stuck.
We finally found where it was, and we're trying to get the cat out, and it's an impossible situation.
We put food down on the ropes and the loops in hopes of attracting the cat in some way, but there's just no way to get the cat.
After a full day on the job, the rescuers were no closer to freeing the kitty than when they had started. Disheartened but still hopeful, they resumed the rescue early the next morning with workers from the North Dade Department of Transportation.
You've been there, what, 2 days now?
2 days.
2 days that we know of.
You'll be all right. You'll be all right.
When I got there, I thought maybe I would just have to lift a drain cover up and reach in and get the cat. But once I got there, we learned that it was a different situation. Overnight, the cat had ended up sliding under the bridge and straight down.
A powerful pump was used to force water through the drain in the hope that it would coax the kitty out the opposite end.
As the water built up, we lost the meowing of the cat, and I called for him to cut the water off, so let me get the sound back, make sure we haven't drowned the cat. And once we got the sound back, then I noticed, I saw the tail, and then they said, no, pop. He was in my hand. At that moment right there, it was like, this is it. I actually saved a life, which I never saved a life before.
I feel good. The cat's still alive. The cat got his life. Just a little wet, scared, but it's all right. Cat named Dot, D-O-T for short.
Whether it's human life or animal life, each of us has a chance on saving one another's life. It's like hand and paw.
So far, we've concentrated on people helping animals in danger. Well, this next story is about an animal that returns the favor. It was already late when 17-year-old Aaron Gargis and his girlfriend, Maria, were walking home from a date at the movies.
I was watching, well, no, I was too involved in watching you.
Alone on a dark and deserted street in one of the rougher sections of Glendale, Arizona, they spotted a very large Doberman standing motionless across the way.
It's a Doberman.
Pretty.
I was scared. I didn't want anything to do with him. But Maria was like, oh, what a cute little dog.
You don't know where it's from. Let's keep walking.
Suddenly, the animal came running.
He just came up and started smelling us and checking us out. He was pretty scary.
but she wasn't scared of him at all immediately.
His reticence is understandable and prudent in many ways. I mean, she could have picked the wrong dog and gotten her hand bitten. This story reminded me very much of the way some feral dog packs are put together. Dogs just join up and travel together, and they act, after they've joined up, as a pack. They defend one another.
Then, without warning, a local street gang appeared down the block. Brandishing weapons, they ominously moved to attack the helpless couple.
And I was worried because there was like 5 guys, and I can't very well take on 5 guys myself.
What do we do? Okay, I just need you to stay calm, all right? Run.
From behind them, the dog suddenly turned to charge the unsuspecting gang.
Either the dog was acting purely out of self-protection, or it had joined up in this kind of ad hoc social pack with Aaron and Maria and perceived them as threatened and was moving to defend the group.
Seemingly proud of his good deed, the Doberman returned to escort Aaron and Maria on the remaining journey to her house.
There is, to a certain extent, a prejudice about Dobermans that they're hair-trigger dogs. Well, that's by no means the majority of the Doberman population. Behaviorally, Dobermans are very protective of the person they bond to.
By the time Aaron was ready to leave, he was surprised to see the dog standing vigil outside Maria's door.
I know. You want to come home with me? Come on.
As he rode off, the dog kept pace as if protecting him on his ride home.
He followed me all the way to the intersection. When we got to the corner,
Good boy.
he just took off the other way, and that was the last I've seen of him.
Where'd you go, boy?
That dog had more class, you know, than the guys that were running up to us. He protects us while these fellow human beings are about to jump us. And if it wasn't a guardian angel, it was a dog with some real good sense.
A stray German Shepherd falls into an icy river. A wild elk gets trapped in a deadly mudslide. Rescuing animals like these always seems to bring out the best in people. In Westville, New Jersey, a stray German Shepherd had fallen through a hole in the ice and was desperately struggling to stay afloat. Cold and scared, the brave dog fought against sub-zero temperatures as he drifted aimlessly amid chunks of ice. A team of rescuers from 3 New Jersey fire departments united and used special sleds to attempt to reach him. The frightened dog had no idea what they wanted and tried to paddle away.
Probably when he was living in the wild, in the woods, wherever he was, he probably had people chase him away. So I think his whole thought process was the last thing he wanted to do was go to a person for help. He just wanted to go the other way.
The dog, extremely cold, was moments away from slipping into unconsciousness. It seemed about to give up, but at last, firefighter Glenn Fleming convinced the dog he was there to help. Fleming reached out to grab the shepherd, but the animal's cold, wet paws kept slipping off the smooth edge of the sled. With a final surge of energy, the poor dog hoisted himself onto the sled.
I got him.
But the rescue was not yet over. As other firefighters reeled both man and animal back to shore, Fleming almost fell off into the icy waters himself. But he pulled himself back up, and in the end, his selfless act of heroism paid off. The cold but very much alive German Shepherd was finally out of the water. The shivering dog was taken to recover in a nearby animal shelter. When news of the story finally broke, local New Jersey residents rallied to provide the dog with the ultimate gift, a loving, permanent home. Jeff Scroop, a senior trooper with the Oregon State Police, was called to a hillside just above Highway 101 in Cannon Beach.
We got some information from a motorist driving by here on 101 of a elk that was stuck in the mud. It's buried up to its armpits, a little better. Not one of the easiest ones I've seen, but we'll give it a try and see what we can do. See if we can keep him getting stuck too. Okay, I see what his problem is.
After careful consideration, the rescue team decided to use rope, manpower, and a truck to extricate the animal. Normally afraid of man, a wild elk's instincts are to flee. But this one didn't have much of a choice. Exhausted, resigned to her plight, she didn't resist the men as they began to dig her free. It was a back-breaking task. Now, this may look painful, but the men were actually careful to prevent the animal from injury. Finally, after struggling nearly 2.5 hours, the elk's ordeal was over with an undignified slide down the muddy hill.
Let's just see if the fire department can come out and hose this thing off for us. We've got a couple fire crews coming, and they're going to hose it off, try to get some of the mud off the animal. It's covered with probably about 40, 50 pounds of mud. Lighten it up a little bit. Right now it doesn't have a lot of energy, so it'd be a good time for a shower.
The Cannon Beach Fire Department arrived, and even through all this indignity, the elk made no real attempt to run off. Surprisingly docile, she actually seemed to have bonded with her human hero.
Put her in the back of the truck and take them up in the woods.
And after spending all this time with friendly people, the elk offered no further resistance when she was loaded onto the truck. All that remained was a return to the wild.
Hey, there you go. Go, baby. Don't get stuck again. It took off on its own power. It seemed to be very happy to be free of the mud and no worse for the wear. Successful mission today, yes.
Wild animals are continually faced with surviving the many hazards of nature, like this Canadian moose that found himself up to his neck in a desperate life and death struggle. During an especially harsh winter at Lac Lejeune in British Columbia, Canada, a 600-pound moose wandered onto a thin sheet of ice and plunged into the frigid water below.
I just looked out the living room window this morning. Katie said there's a moose on the ice down there. All we could see was the head swimming around. Just had a little area in the middle there, couldn't go anywhere.
With that rope.
We chainsawed the channel. It was the only option we have because you couldn't get close enough to get a rope. The ice was too thick, and then it was difficult to get her into the channel. We ended up using the catch pole, the one we use on small animals, to get around her head and yank her into the channel.
At one point, it seemed the rescuers themselves were in danger on the ice.
Get a hold of that rope and get her feet up in the ice. We'll go back here and we can turn her. Let her go back here to this open water out of the ice. Okay. Let her rest. I think she's dead. Yeah. Oh, don't. Oh, she'll get out and turn around and go back on you.
In fact, the moose is not an especially docile creature and is known to have a mean temper.
Oh, boys, come on. Ah, there. Come on. There. Now get the... She's out. Let's go. Get the ropes off her right now. Let her sit there. She's going to be a while getting up.
It was a great effort from everybody that was here. The whole community, you know, sort of got involved, and this rescue was no different than rescuing a person for what the people went through.
Oh, there you go. Thanks. And we got the...
You get something like this, and you know, everybody gets involved. It brings out the best in everybody, and I'm sure everybody feels good about getting that moose out of here. Good job, Noel.
Hey!
In Westminster, California, Jeff Smith watched helplessly over a 2-month-old kitten that was trapped in an underground pipe.
I know it does have some strength left, and I know it'll make it out.
Rescue workers arrived with heavy equipment and set out to save the tiny creature before it was too late. After 3 hours of ripping through concrete and digging up pavement, the rescuers finally located the starving, frightened animal.
No cat right there.
Nothing in there. Okay, go ahead and cut through it.
Heartened to hear the sound of her weak yet persistent meowing, they carefully cut a hole in the pipe. They inserted a hose into the pipe and carefully nudged the kitten into the hands of a very delighted rescuer.
Just a kitten. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, baby, it's okay.
Though her fur was dirty and matted from her ordeal, the tiny animal touched the hearts of everyone at the rescue site, including little Jeff, who adopted the stray and named her, what else? Piper. In Fishers, Indiana, another kitten faced a decidedly different kind of predicament.
We got a call from one of the church members saying that they had heard a kitten crying, but they couldn't locate it.
Time was running out as firefighters feared that the kitten would get washed away into the sewer system.
The cries of the kitty got fainter, so we were worried about time because we knew that it had been in there for a couple days.
At last, they spotted the frightened kitten.
Well, and I heard that the crew on the other end actually located her by visual sight. They were ecstatic.
Gently using the tip of the tiny snake camera, they nudged her back towards a rear hole in the pipe. Watching the camera on a monitor above ground, the rescuers carefully forced the frightened kitty to move backwards.
When it hit my hand, it scared it so much it ran back towards the camera. And after the near miss, my heart just died. I just thought, oh, I just missed it. I couldn't grab a hold of it.
One more time, they used the camera to push the baby cat back towards the hole. Slowly, Jody reached down and scooped up the kitten to the relief of everyone who was there. So far, we've seen people rescue animals and animals rescue people. What follows is the most amazing footage we've ever seen of an animal actually saving the life of another animal. Eager to drink at a watering hole, a herd of African elephants in Botswana, Africa, accidentally bump a baby over the edge of the hole into the sticky mud. Sensing imminent danger, the herd charges into action in a dramatic effort to save the young calf.
Adult elephants exhibit a protective maternal behavior towards youngsters. It's not uncommon that if a youngster should fall on the ground, the others will come around and touch it and try to get it back on its feet.
As the calf struggles, thick mud forms a suction very much like quicksand around his rear legs. Watch closely as the elephants engineer an incredible animal rescue. One large family member literally bends down to help in the effort. Pushing with their tusks and trunks, they keep the baby from drowning in the powerful mud. Another elephant heroically digs a ramp for the calf. The suction is finally broken, and the frightened young calf is free at last to join the rest of the herd. This next animal rescue begins immediately after a group of men thought they had saved a young deer from a frozen lake. Unfortunately, the rescue was only half complete. The Wakanda, Illinois Fire Department had just struggled with the frightened deer that was trapped in the icy island lake. As they set out to free him, the deer leapt up and bolted away, right back to the same dangerous spot. Once again, they'd have to go out and get him.
We were all standing there as that deer went back out onto the ice, and I mean, everybody just kind of went, oh no, not again. We couldn't believe that it did this.
Once again, the deer thrashed around in the frigid slush, unable to find her footing. The dive team feared that unless they could rescue him again and quickly, the poor creature might drown.
We were determined to save this deer, and we weren't going to let this animal die. That determination kicked in and was, no way we're going to let this happen.
Careful not to hurt the deer, they slowly dragged him towards the shore. And for the second time that day, a successful animal rescue. Determined not to make the same mistake twice, the rescue team swiftly took the deer safely into the woods, where they let him go to live his life in what they hoped was a safer place. Well, these next stories involve some other animals whose curiosity got them into some rather sticky situations. In Justerberg, Germany, neighbors woke up to the unexpected sight of a 400-pound cow looking ridiculous standing in the middle of a half-empty neighborhood swimming pool. Of course, cows aren't very good swimmers, so the remaining water had to be drained from the pool before the rescue could be attempted. And while the sight of a cow in a pool may seem silly, the situation was actually dangerous. Every effort had to be made to keep the animal from becoming nervous and scared. Should she panic at any point, both the animal and her rescuers could be seriously injured. To get her up and out of the pool, one of the rescuers came up with the idea of using hay to build a staircase. They tied ropes to each horn to gently coax the bovine up the stairs. But in the end, the effort proved to be a comical disaster. At last, a forklift was called into action. The cow was tranquilized to prepare her for a short aerial journey. And once she was sedated and secured into a special harness, Bossy was slowly elevated up and out of the pool. Disoriented but uninjured, the cow was gently placed on terra firma for a friendly pat and a taste of hay. Another seemingly ridiculous calamity befell a dog in Randolph County, North Carolina. JoJo, an 85-pound shepherd mix, found herself in a very tight situation.
I'll just be glad when she's out of here, man. I mean, she's old and I love her and everything.
When rescue workers arrived from the local sheriff's department, the situation was quickly determined to be critical.
There was a little tiny crack in the drain on top of the driveway, and she was sort of sticking her nose up and trying to get air from there. It was obvious the dog was running out of air.
I'm going to sedate the animal so it doesn't get really scared and doesn't hurt itself while we're trying to bust the concrete out.
When the drugged hot dog had taken effect, a relaxed JoJo could do little but enjoy the sight of sledgehammer-wielding firemen who had arrived to save her life.
Come on, girl.
And she just sort of came out and it's like, I'm free, I'm free. And that was just the best feeling in the world for me. It's like, I did it. I got this dog out. She's going to be fine.
Almost 24 hours after trapping herself, JoJo was free to once again roam the neighborhood.
I'm just glad to have her out, but I wish I could find her now. She ran away again.
Most pet owners would easily risk their lives to save their own animals. But would your animal risk its life to save you? In this next story, that's exactly what happened.
I had just come home from work. I work as a waitress, so it was a little bit late.
The only one waiting up for her in their Stuart, Florida home was the family's pet potbelly pig, Petunia.
The pigs are the fourth in line of intelligence: humans, apes, dolphins, and pigs. You can't get a smarter animal as a domesticated pet.
It was just before 5 in the morning, and Chrissy had completed an exhausting day.
Just kind of throw your purse down, you know, untie your apron, kick your shoes off.
Yeah. A pig will bond like no other animal. So if you treat the pig like part of the family, it will treat you like part of its herd.
Chrissy's 9-year-old son, Josh, had crawled into bed with his parents and everyone was sound asleep. Then tragedy struck. The heat from a light bulb on a lamp Chrissy had forgotten to turn off caused the lampshade to ignite. Fire soon spread around the house. Petunia, who was asleep in the living room, quickly moved into action. She ran to the sleeping family.
Petunia, would you stop that, please?
Because if she wants something and the door's closed, she'll bang her head on the door until we get up and let her in and thought, oh my gosh, Randy, it's your turn, you let her in.
Would you please let her in?
No. She needs to get out, she needs to save the herd. So she's going to get the family out by waking them. They will get her out, she will get them out, and they'll work together to survive.
As the flames blazed hotter and hotter, Petunia pushed her entire weight against the door.
All of a sudden, she just pushed the door in. It just popped right open. Petunia was pushing on the bed and pushing on the bed. I could hear the comforter ripping from her tearing on it, you know. She was so frantic.
As the pig struggled to wake the family, toxic smoke poured into the room.
Josh, come on!
Push Josh almost to the point of slapping him to wake him up and get him moving.
Get down, get down, get down.
I got my wife and child out the back door.
Go! All right, come on.
That's when the fire alarm went off. It never went off until we were already out the back door.
Made sure everyone was safe and ran back through the house. I shouldn't have done that, but basically I did it anyway, because you're always looking to save your home. And the corner of the living room was engulfed in flames.
Overcome by the noxious fumes, Randy stumbled outside to join his family.
All right, you guys okay? We're all right. Anybody inside? The fires, it's all over the living room and it's spreading. All right.
the firemen came in the back and they said, you know, what happened? And we told him. Petunia woke us up and he said, as thick as the smoke is, you're very lucky that you made it out when you did. Another minute or two at the most, and you might not have waken up at all.
She saved our lives. She literally saved our lives. There's no doubt about it.
It's like having a dog with attitude, you know. We're very pig-friendly at our house.
And she'll live in my house as long as she ever wants to, that's for sure. I'll take care of her forever.
The following rescue contains footage that may be difficult to watch. It involves a horse trapped in a storm drain and a short but very dangerous rescue attempt. Near Sydney, Australia, a quarter horse named Missy had tragically tumbled down a 10-foot storm drain that could have been her grave. Though she still had quite an appetite, Missy had to be removed from the drain as quickly as possible. A crane was brought in. She was given a tranquilizer to calm her nerves, and slowly, carefully, she was elevated from the drain. As family members looked on, Missy was gently lifted above the concrete pit. The sedative wasn't strong enough. She began to panic. As her horrified rescuers looked on, Missy bolted upright in the restraint, slipping through the straps. The spooked horse fell dangerously back into the pit. If her back legs were broken or her back was severely injured, the animal would have to be destroyed. The rescuers wouldn't know how badly she was hurt until they pulled her up. Yet 5 agonizing hours later, Missy was successfully rescued with hardly a scratch on her badly shaken body.
Oh, fantastic effort. A long but a fantastic effort. I really appreciate it.
It's relatively common for cats and dogs to get stuck in some very tight places. But what do you do when the trapped animal is a potentially dangerous 2,000-pound Black Angus bull? 70 feet down a narrow sinkhole in Cedar Hill, Tennessee, a bull was trapped with nowhere to go but up.
I had noticed just right away that it didn't look like all the cattle was there. Most notably, you couldn't see the bull. There was a dark hole in the bottom of the sinkhole that I could see there was something down there. It was black and it was moving.
How it got there, no one knew for sure, but no one wanted to leave it, and the fire department and the crane service were called into action. Paul Selby climbed 30 feet into the hole, then was gently lowered the final 40 feet to the bottom.
I saw that there was nothing wrong with the bull at that point, and more or less was interested in not getting in his way in case he was nervous. This is about a half a ton of bull we're talking about. Our first attempt,
What do you say? Bring him up. Coming up.
we had just barely got his feet off the floor, and the strap started slipping. He kept struggling and slipped out of the strap.
Uh-oh.
We were sort of in a desperation at that point. I was searching for anything to be able to get him out, and the only thing left were his hind legs.
Go fast right there.
And from that point, we connected the crane and literally just lifted him straight up.
Come on out with him.
Of course, he was struggling again as we tried to lift him up.
By taking him rear feet first, it stretched him out longer and made him thinner. He just barely cleared that hole. Probably an inch less in diameter, and he wouldn't have fit through the hole.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
The final danger began as a 2,000-pound bull made a slow and potentially deadly ascent 70 feet straight up out of the hole. Only the strength of the bull's 2 ankles kept him from plummeting to his death.
In ranching, something's new every day, but nothing's ever this new.
The bull's enormous weight pulled relentlessly on his weakening ankles. But as soon as he was lowered, a local veterinarian gave the animal a clean bill of health.
But you think he no broken bones?
No, he wouldn't be walking that good.
Okay. Appreciate it, guys. It was a first for everybody. I'd asked the crane service had they ever made any animal rescues before, and he'd said, well, the only thing was cats out of trees. And I said, well, this is a little bit different. And he said, extremely so. He's just one lucky bull. And it took a lot of people to ensure that he's still alive today.
To all those people who selflessly risk their time and in many cases their lives to save animals all over the world, we dedicate this program. As we've seen, the bond that ties all creatures great and small is never more tested than when a life is in danger. Rising to that challenge to save a life brings out the very best in all of us. I'm James Brown, and thanks for watching.